Here's a little picture I drew of the badass that is Roronoa Zoro. Certainly enjoyed his fights and hope you enjoy this drawing. If you do, remember to follow me on Google+, Instagram, Facebook, and even the Twitter.
One Piece, Chapter 195, Mr. Bushido.
Holy Lord. That is all. That is all I have to say. And that really should be just the end of the chapter review. In all seriousness, though. Hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome, awe-inspiring, oh-shit-inducing tale of One Piece. Our last chapter, of course, saw us with ultimately the fight between Mr. One and Zoro raging on, but at the end, Zoro picking up a building and poised to throw it at Mr. One. Still really not knowing, though, what his sensei meant about being able to not cut anything, but also being able to cut steel, just kind of being able to have that selective, being able to, like, will your sword to cut through what you want it to. That's what I take from it anyway. But that's how the chapter ended up. That's where this one leaves off. Zoro has now flung the building at Mr. One. He's not standing far away from him, so, you know, it's only a 20 or 30-foot throw of a, 48-ton building, roughly. And I'm assuming that just based on the concrete metric purport. No, I'm just guessing, but I know that it's certainly a little more than we've ever seen him pick up before. So he tosses this at Mr. One, and Mr. One's like, oh, fool, I'll cut through anything. It's like atomic dicer. He cuts through everything. Cuts through the building as it comes at him. The next several pages are Zoro just basically going, I have no idea what the sensei meant. I don't really understand about being able to not cut anything, but being able to cut steel. And so I still don't understand how to cut steel. But, I'm just never going to give up, and I'm going to keep pushing because that's the way of a true swordsman. So, I mean, he comes at him again and again and again. I mean, he's... And I just picture it like I can't wait to see it in the anime. Just clang, 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 and just coming at him, trying to batter him, hit him, whatever. I mean, he's throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him, and just coming at him, right, again and again and again. So Mr. One winds up getting a couple of timely hits in on Zoro, which obviously is starting to take its toll, starts to weaken him, and ultimately he says, "Listen, I'm not just a swordsman. Don't mistake me for just a swordsman. I can turn into a number of different things, a number of different killing devices, right?" So he goes and he changes his arms into, like, they look like these giant drills, right? But he says saw blades, like circular saw blades. So, but it basically looks like a big spiral-like circular saws on his arms, and he's gonna go and then Zoro goes, and still the intimidation factor. Zoro's just like, what are you, like an excavator? You work for a construction company? And it pisses him off, of course. He says, no, I'm an assassin, He says, I couldn't be an excavator anyway because I'd make too much of a mess, And as he's hitting him, there's blood just spewing from Zoro, And we've seen this happen to him before, but really not to this extent. I mean, it looks like he's just getting ripped apart, man. I mean, he looks like he's just getting freaking mauled by lions, you know what I mean? And there's just blood everywhere in each thing, and he's just hitting him. And at first, Zoro, comes up against and he blocks the first, hit or whatever, but he sees sparks flying and everything. He's like, how fast are those blades spinning? He's like, I'm not going to be able to hold out against this. And that's when the tide starts to turn and some of the hits start to actually land on him. And so then he winds up going and kind of like, just running him through and hitting Zoro. And Zoro just goes and falls flat on his face, next to this fountain column type deal, And he's all bloodied and beaten and everything like that. And he goes and he's just like, he goes to get up and everything. And Mr. One's impressed at this point. He's just kind of like, what the hell? You're still alive, He's like, well, that's not going to, happen for long or whatever. So he goes and does one of his, one of his slicing moves. I don't know, Atom Slicer or whatever it is, Atom Crusher or something like that. I think it's like Tower Crusher or something he calls it. And he goes and and you see this side view of Zoro who's like propped himself kind of up against the side of this column, And he just goes, and you don't see like you see blood come out of Zoro, but you see all the shit above and behind him just like getting diced and sliced. So you know that these things went through and just cut deeply into his body, and certainly that is how it's drawn and kind of insinuated and looked to be drawn. It's very, very cool stuff, man. But also very, very, heart-wrenching because you're just like, my God, Zoro is just getting his ass handed to him. Like, can he ever come out of a fight without losing like half of the entire makeup of the body of his blood, like 3 to 4 or 5 pints, whatever it is. So he goes in, and I mean, he's just like, I couldn't even believe it, you know. And we figured, man, Zoro is done. I mean, that's how it looks anyway. Mr. One even thinks he's done, and he basically says, you know, rest in peace. And I don't know why I say that, but he says rest in peace. And as he walks away, of course, this column is crumbling and falling down on top of Zoro. So now any chance that you would have thought of him being alive is gone. That of course is, unless you're like me and you know that there's, you know, another 500 and some odd chapters to go after this, and that Zoro's, you know, like Luffy's right hand man, and that they're probably not going to kill him off. Now that's really the only spoiler type advantage that I have, is that I feel like a lot of the main characters are still going to probably survive, but I don't know, you know. So what winds up happening though is, of course, now it looks like Zoro's done. There is just puddles and pools of blood everywhere. I mean, he just seriously looks like he got mauled by, like, you know, a pack of grizzlies, man. I mean, it's terrible, right? And I mean, gut-wrenching just to look at. I can only imagine if it was in color, you know. I mean, ugh, probably turn my stomach, you know. At least in this, it's in black and white, so all the blood's just drawn in black, and it almost seems like it's surreal, you know. I guess it's not as like hard hitting as I think it would be if it was in color. But anyway, so he goes in, and Mr. One's walking away down the street over there or whatever, right? And all of a sudden you go and you see this word bubble thing in Zoro's face, and he's just like, I wonder how the others are doing, you know? Here in this time of almost certain death and defeat, he's wondering how everybody else is doing, right? That just shows how much of a man he is and how much heart he has, you know? So so he goes, and he's obviously pulled himself up out of the rubble and what have you, you know. And Mr. One goes, and he's just kind of standing there bloodied, you know, and just sort of to the side, and it gives that, you know, with the caption above it. And Mr. One's just like, how could you even be alive after I sliced you up and everything, that tower fell on you? And he says, no, the stones missed me. I knew where they were all going to fall. And you're like, what the hell is he talking about? And he's like, I know that my sword is underneath that rock right there. And I'm just like, what the fuck? All of a sudden, what is he, David Copperfield? What the hell's going on here, right? So what it is then he goes and he starts inner monologuing and talking, and it's like, this is the awakening that he needed. As that stone column was falling and he was at the brink of death, right? All of a sudden he could like hear and like feel, and he was like one with the inanimate objects of the stones. He can hear the trees breathing, right? And he knew where the stones were going to fall, where their placement was, so he could move and dodge and not be crushed by them, right? So he goes and he picks up his sword, you know, and it's cool because he's talking about this, and he's like, is this the key to being, you know, being someone who, you know, they cannot cut paper but can cut steel? And again, it's basically like that will and desire and determination, and being able to mentally go and kind of be in tune and in touch with whatever it is that you want to go and run through or cut through, and being able to selectively cut whatever it is, you know, whatever type of object. In this case, it's obviously steel. So it's very, very cool the way they kind of explain it, and you just sort of like hear like the wind blowing, you know, as Zoro's, you know, and that's what I picture anyway, you know, as he's kind of like thinking about this in his head, and he's talking, you know, in his cool stoic type voice, you know. And so he goes and he's got pulls out one of his swords. He's got one of his swords, you know. And Mr. One over here, as a matter of fact, I'm going to wind up showing this the last page over here, which I think is really cool. So Mr. One winds up sorry. Gotta find it there. A bunch of advertisements then. So Mr. One goes and he's just like, one sword? Yeah, that's all? Okay, whatever. I'm going to finish you off now type of thing, you know. And then he goes and he's just like, one sword is all I need. One sword, one strike. And then he goes and he just leaps into the air, and I just picture Zoro coming through the air like, ah, you know, just crazy, you know. And, you know, just like in slow motion, he's just like, lion strike! And, you know, then it goes to the next thing, and you go and you see Mr. One, I apologize about that. Mr. One is going to make a number 2 after Zoro goes and runs him through. So that's a little rhyme I just made up there myself. But anyway, so he does the lion strike, and then he goes to come in with that atomic dicer thing again or whatever, and you're like, okay, whatever, good deal. Then you wind up seeing this, man. You see this. This is the aftermath, okay? This is when your shit gets handed to you, okay? Look at Zoro, man. He looks like a hobo that's been wandering around for frickin' weeks on end and hasn't had a meal, and like he stole a midget's pants. I mean, look at that. He is so foobarred right now that here's more blood on the outside of him than there is on the inside of him, okay? He's running on pure testosterone and fucking awesomeness. That's what's going on right now with Zoro, okay? Seriously, if ever there was a big swinging dick in One Piece, this is the big swinging dick. And, you know, excuse all my sexist things there too. You could be a big swinging whatever you want to call it, but that's just that's just the term that I use. But anyway, so the very, very cool picture, because obviously you can see, you know, they've clashed. He's run through him. There is blood spurting out of Mr. One. You're thinking, oh, this is great. And then he goes and he's just like, and he's just with a cool side view. He's all bloodied, you know. And he's just like, my thanks. Now I'm stronger. And it's like, man, yeah, thank you. You brought me to the next level. Me running your ass through brought you to the next level. And I just truly think that was a cool moment. Definitely, I mean, it's so hard to compare and to weigh each fight, but as far as just the brutality of it, the action of it, and just the way things flowed and moved, and just the fact that, you know, Zoro, it didn't drag on for a long time. It's only gone on for a couple of chapters. But to see Zoro come out on top like that after, I mean, he was just at the brink of death. It's like he kissed death's doorstep. And he even says that when he's kind of inner monologuing. He's like, you know, I've only felt this, I felt this way before, basically when I'm on Hades' doorstep, you know. And it's like when he's on death's doorstep, that's when he goes and he pulls from down deep and fights and pulls out of the pits of hell to live and to obviously to be stronger and to overcome whatever it is, that obstacle that's in his way. So very cool stuff. My chapter question is if you weren't, you know, a big fan of Zoro, I mean, how could you not be now? But really, what do you think about that whole, the way Oda described everything, as far as him being able to kind of like hear the trees breathe, and he could like feel his steel from his swords, you know, from Mr. One. He's like, I can feel his steel. And I think it's kind of cool. It's almost showing like how you're in touch with just, you know, it's almost like akin to like Star Wars fans, like the Force. You know what I mean? It's like being able to feel this kind of invisible essence and aura around you that can go and like touch and reach and branch out to others and all the others. It's kind of like being able to feel the life force, the life pulse of the world. I mean, to me, it's really cool. But weigh in, you know, brothers and sisters. Let me know what your thoughts are on how that was depicted and how Oda described that. That ends up the volume for us. We're going to be looking for, this was a great one. We're going to be looking forward to pushing forward in volume 22 next, and certainly hope to see you all there. So remember to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it for all my ridiculous analogies that I come up with, and in words that I probably don't even know what they mean. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching every last one of you in the next one, Nation.
Join the Nerd Nation, and only then will you feel the true power of the dark side.